We're never one-dimensional in our chosen craft if we love it, consume it, and even go further to excel beyond it. For Valerie Boyd, writer, publisher, scholar, educator, and biographer, her tapestry of talents is a vast kaleidoscope. Storyteller and truth-sayer, she emasculates the invisibility that comes with being a Black woman in America. Revered as a definitive biographer of Zora Neale Hurston, Valerie Boyd's meticulous gift exhumed from an unmarked grave one of the most exceptional authors of the 20th century. Boyd's brilliance also moved Alice Walker to entrust that editor extraordinaire with co-creation in Walker's soon-to-be-released journal entries. Bound and titled Gathering Blossoms Under Fire, this intimate collection memorializes Walker's prophetic Black woman warrior musings spanning 5 decades. Valerie's death, February 12th, has left a huge void. The certainty of her all too short time on this stage erased endless possibilities of what else she would create. But our immortal prize is a voluminous legacy larger than life and more expansive than Valerie Boyd's moment on this earth. Though she joined the ancestors, what remains is a visionary's generous bequeath to colleagues, protégés, and followers. More than books or articles, they are rich ideals and timeless iterations we can see, touch, and share. Her footprint is huge and difficult to fill, but thanks to her enduring mastery as a word architect, the grand edifice, many mansions she created, are indelible. This is Gwen McKinney for Unerased Black Women Speak.
Today, Unerased Black Women Speak will pay tribute to the late Valerie Boyd, editor and author extraordinaire. Boyd is the editor of Alice Walker's soon-to-be-released new book and author of what the New York Times calls the definitive biography of Zora Neale Hurston, Wrapped in Rainbows. Alice Walker is among the Black women authors who will share their remarkable stories about Valerie Boyd and how she influenced American literature. Our featured guests are 2 women who have shaped American politics and literature. Charlayne Hunter-Gault integrated the University of Georgia and penned several books, including In My Place, which chronicles her steps into history. Also, we are joined by A'Lelia Bundles, who has written about the life of her great-great-grandmother, Madam C.J. Walker, for decades.
My name is A'Lelia Bundles.
My name is Charlayne Hunter-Gault.
Charlayne, the University of Georgia, Atlanta has a residency in your name. Valerie Boyd was the most recent recipient of this honor. Tell us a story about your first meeting with Miss Boyd.
I think she was the first Charlayne Hunter-Gault distinguished writer in residence. And it made me so happy because she is such a distinguished writer. And we met, I can't even remember. I used to go down for the Holmes Hunter Lecture, which is an annual lecture remembering Hamilton and my entry into the University of Georgia as its first Black students. And surely I met her then. She had such an exuberance about her that, you just were captivated by her. And when I was told that they were going to name the distinguished writer in residence, apply it to her with my name, I thought, oh my goodness, what a great name to be associated with. She was open and I love the pictures of her everywhere because they all, I think most of the ones I've seen show her smiling. And that was her way of wrapping people in her rainbow. I mean, the book that she wrote, Wrapped in Rainbow, is about one of my favorite people, Zora Neale Hurston, with all of her idiosyncrasies. She captured those, but she was the definitive biographer of Zora. In fact, in Wrapped in Rainbows, she wrote something about Zora that I think is so relevant to her own identity. She said, Black writers should have the same freedom as white writers. She's quoting Zora. She said they should not feel obligated to write about, quote, the race problem or other social ills, but should claim the same liberty that white writers enjoyed, namely the right and the responsibility to write about anything all.
I don't remember exactly when Valerie and I met, but Valerie did a review of my book On Her Own Ground, The Life and Times of Madam C.J. Walker, when she was at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. But we had been, in the same circles because we were both journalists and members of National Association of Black Journalists. But really, it was when Valerie and I both had the same editor at Scribner, Lisa Drew. And Lisa Drew edited On Her Own Ground, and she also edited Wrapped in Rainbows. And we began to be in touch with each other because there was some overlap in our research and in the eras that we were covering. Madam Walker's daughter, Alelia Walker, had known Zora Neale Hurston during the 1920s. So we began to exchange information. Charlene has already said so much, but, just warm, supportive, a cheerleader, an institution builder, a great writer, an empathetic person. All of those things were very much what Valerie meant to me.
My name is Rosalind Bentley, and Valerie Boyd was my friend for 18 years. And this is bittersweet, but currently I am the interim director of the narrative nonfiction program at the Grady College of Journalism and Mass Communications at the University of Georgia. And that is the program that Valerie started. The number of Black women journalists of our age, I don't want to say it was small, but kind of. In some ways, it was a sorority. And if you didn't know someone, you knew someone that knew them. So I always knew about Valerie. But I did not meet Valerie until I actually interviewed for a job at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I was sitting outside the building waiting on a ride to pick me up, and Valerie came outside, and I guess she was waiting on a ride, and she sat next to me, and I knew who she was. Wrapped in Rainbows had just come out. We talked, and then I stepped out on a limb and I said, well, your book is Wrapped in Rainbows, but Zora actually wrote Rappin' in Rainbows. And her eyes got wide. And I thought, oh no, I'm not getting hired anyplace. Instead, she said, you are a Zora head. Yes, it is that. And then she proceeded to tell me why, though, she had written it Wrapped in Rainbows. And from that moment on, she was my friend. She was concerned with the deeper truth you were trying to express. And if that truth had anything to do with Black people and Black women, Valerie was just fully engaged. I was going to have my gallbladder removed. And so I did. You can be as old as the hills, but if your mother's alive, she's going to try to come into town and be there for that surgery. And one of the first visitors I got when I was recuperating was Valerie. And Valerie came and sat in the living room. And she didn't just talk with me. She engaged with my mom and talked about, my mom's growing up and, what her life experiences had been like. She wanted to know, and it was a genuine conversation. Valerie is on the continuum of Black female writers who wrote about and continue to write about our experiences, our lives from, I'm going to start all the way back with Phyllis Wheatley, and I'm going to bring it all the way forward to, a Toni Morrison. Valerie was on that continuum. She wanted to tell the truth of our lives. And she decided this back when she was in college at the Medill School of Journalism, that her focus was going to be Black women and telling the truth, the beauty, the difficulties, the struggles, and the triumphs of our lives. And what Valerie brought, not just with her own work, her own essays, her book, Wrapped in Rainbows, her vision in working with Alice Walker on Gathering Blossoms, and to the upcoming, and it kind of hurts to say it will be posthumously, Bigger Than Bravery. It's a collection of essays of writers. And what Valerie brought with each one of those projects was this insistence that our stories were valid, that they are not a separate part of the American canon. They are the American canon. They are on par with Faulkner. They are on par with Carson McCullers. They're on par with Joan Didion. You don't have American letters unless you have the work and writings of Valerie Boyd.
My name is Yannick Rice-Lamb. I'm a professor of journalism at Howard University and co-founder of FierceForBlackWomen.com. I knew Valerie through one of my roommates in Atlanta. I was also familiar with Valerie through some of her works early on when she started 8 Rock magazine, it's arts and culture magazine, and also Health Quest, which was a health magazine that predated Heart and Soul, where I worked. I kind of consider her a Zora for our generation in many ways. One of the things I think this stands out is that a lot of people talk about her biography of Zora, Wrapped in Rainbows, as being the definitive biography of Zora Neale Hurston. But even though it has that acclaim and it's won all these awards and it's a roadmap for writing a biography, she still also believes that there's room for someone else to do another biography or more than one biography. And she has taken the step of leaving her records at Emory University so that other people have her records to go through as they're doing it. I think one of the things that she brought was her excellence as a writer, of course, and her insight. But also even at the University of Georgia, she started an MFA in narrative nonfiction. She didn't want to call it creative nonfiction because she wanted to make sure that people placed emphasis on journalism and marrying the truth with beautiful words, and in starting a program, which is no small feat at a university. I think we're missing just a remarkable and beautiful person. People can honor her by doing more work that kind of lives up to her standards, and to really, marry beautiful words with the truth as she tried to do. And also to extend the community. She kind of nurtured people in a multi-generational way. Her work is not only living on through what she wrote, but also in nurturing the words and the lives of other people who are following behind her, all the students that she's touched, all the people she's done workshops with, all the people she's encouraged to tell their stories and to find their voice and helping them shape their voice.
You've been exchanging emails with Valerie Boyd since 2007?
I just reread the emails that were on my Gmail account. So prior to that, I had an AOL account. I didn't get to go back in those. But yes, I had maybe 50 emails starting in 2007. And some of those were just, hey, how are you doing? I know you're working on a new book. And then they really kind of ramped up. In 2011, we were both working on books. And at that point, she was working on a book called Spirit in the Dark about early Black women actresses, Nina Mae McKinney, Ethel Waters, Dorothy Dandridge. And she was trying to figure out her next project. And I was starting to write the biography that I'm almost finished with many, many years later, a biography of A'Lelia Walker called The Joy Goddess of Harlem. So we knew that we were once again overlapping. And so those emails, it's just like she's a cheerleader. We were commiserating about, yeah, I haven't really got any writing done. I'm struggling. And we would both say to the other, well, don't worry, it's going to come, you'll get it done. I came upon an email this morning where this is December of 2012. It had just been her birthday. And so she said, well, my week has been less productive on the book front. It was the last week of classes, so I had a big grading push. But I have an interesting recent development that I'd like to talk with you about. Alice Walker has asked me to edit a volume of her journals, excerpts from the 40 years of writing personal journals she's placed, along with many other documents at Emory. If that project goes well, she's also thinking I might edit a collection of her letters. I am super excited about this opportunity, and I have said yes, of course. So that was the moment our weekly conversations with each other began to diminish at that point because she was immersing herself, and that she was so excited. It really became, as you know, already she had a life's work with Wrapped in Rainbows and with the program in nonfiction writing, but this will just be birthed into the world in such an amazing way.
My name is Vita Goller. I recently retired from Spelman College after being a professor there for 33 years. I was a really, really good friend of Val's. We actually were partners for 23 years. And even though we had moved into separate homes, we did that, I guess, about 5 years ago, we still were great friends. She was my best friend. She was my best friend. We actually became friends over a couple of years before we became partners. She was really herself. And I love that about her, that she was unapologetically Val. I was able to witness some transformations in her over time. So she got a job at UGA, and she turned into this amazing professor where she just had great exercises and experiences and teaching processes for her students. Another transformation on a funny or lighter note was with dogs. Like when we met and were friends, we would visit my sister. I have a sister in town who had this beautiful, great dog, Rhodesian Ridgeback, which is a big dog. Her name was Zora. She got named after Zora Neale Hurston because of, Valerie's work. And Zora was really sweet, but Val was like, okay, yeah, dogs are all right. I mean, I don't know that she wasn't afraid of Zora, but she was just like, yeah, I can take her. She would I can take her or leave her. She would kind of pet her on the head and just, But then, I don't know, at some point, we just started talking about getting a dog, and she did all this research, which was also Val. She researched everything, looking at dog characteristics and personalities and trying to match them with ours. And she turned into this great dog person. But she just turned into this amazing cook where she would explore things. She would get a recipe and then just adjust it and then continue to adjust it over time. One of the things that she said a lot was that her mission was to tell Black women's stories. So I felt like in reading her book, I really got, and we all got a real taste of who Zora Neale Hurston really was. She helped us see ourselves. She just showed us Black women. And she did it with such beauty. Like, she was such a beautiful writer that we really got to kind of bathe in the beauty of her writing and what she was saying about people, about Black women.
We are fortunate enough to find footage of Valerie Boyd talking about her work on Wrapped in Rainbows. Here is a portion of her presentation at the Wilson Center in Washington, D.C. in 2003.
There was never quite enough for Zora Neale Hurston in the world she grew up in, so she made up whatever she needed. In her father's house, on 5 acres of land in Central Florida, young Zora lacked no material comforts. She had 8 rooms to roam, a large yard carpeted with Bermuda grass, plenty of playmates, 7 siblings, ample amounts of yellow octagon laundry soap for bathing, 2 big chinaberry trees for climbing, enough leftover boiled eggs to use as hand grenades on other children, and all the home-cured meat, garden-fresh collard greens, and mama-made cornbread she could eat. But Zora had other needs. She needed to know, for instance, what the end of the world was like, whether it was sort of tucked under like the hem of a dress, as she once wrote, or if it was just a sharp drop-off into nothingness. One summer day around 1900, when she was about 9 years old, Zora decided she ought to walk out to the horizon and see. She asked a friend, a schoolmate named Carrie Roberts, to go with her. The next morning, bright and soon, Zora and Carrie were to meet by the palmettos near Zora's house to begin their journey to the edge of the world. Daunted by the daring of the thing, Carrie came to tell Zora she couldn't go, that perhaps they should wait until they were big enough to wear long dresses and old enough to stay out past sundown without earning a spanking. Zora pleaded with her friend, but she refused to go. They fought, and Zora went home, as she wrote decades later, and hid under the house with my heartbreak. Still, she recalled, I did not give up the idea of my journey. I was merely lonesome for someone brave enough to undertake it with me.
Alice Walker is one of the most respected authors of our time. Valerie Boyd was her trusted editor and dear friend. For this podcast, Ms. Walker recorded a tribute to Valerie Boyd. Please take a listen to this heartfelt memorial.
I've been thinking about Valerie all day and all week. I'm missing her very deeply and realizing that I am probably grieving more for her than for almost anyone in my life. And part of the reason for that is that she is and continues to be someone who developed far beyond what people in my community expected possible for Black girls. And her full blossoming as a human being is so incredible. It is such a gift to all of us. I went back this morning to read letters that we've been writing to each other since for about 10 years. We've been working on our last project. In every single letter, she is so present. She's so prepared. She's so there. This is what we can give each other. And this is part of why celebrating her is so important. We need to see our people, our sisters, our brothers, who stand, and they keep having fun, they keep laughing, they keep wanting to dance, they keep wanting to know what you're cooking, they keep being human. And this is Valerie. She was so that. I miss her. I will always miss her. And yet she did her work so well that all we miss really is her in the body. She won't let us miss her in the spirit because she's all around us in every which way. And her sense of humor was wonderful. And her sense of, gathering all kinds of people in celebration of the best of us. It's just amazing. And I think now of Robert Hemingway, whom we, she and I together decided that though he was as white as you could possibly be, he had the heart of a Black woman. So the sense of fun, the sense of outrageousness, the sense of dance, she had all of that and such a great intelligence and fierceness. I am so happy to have known Valerie.
We just heard a tribute to Valerie Boyd from award-winning author Alice Walker. So Charlene, A'Lelia, what are your responses?
I listened to it and I thought, what is there left to say? I mean, she so captured Valerie, and it's hard to add anything to that because she was so warm and inviting and encouraging, as A'Lelia has indicated through the email. And you never thought that you were talking to a stranger. You always thought you were talking to somebody whom you had known all your life and who understood you. And so it's hard to add anything to what Alice said because she just so captured Valerie in a wonderful way. And I think that here are two examples, Alice as well as Valerie, who we can put up to answer the critics about the importance of Black history. Because you read from Valerie the life of Zora, and although she from time to time encountered issues with people who were not the same color as she also understood whom she was dealing with. So she knew how to get around some of that ignorance. And I think that that's so important as we try today. The passage that I wrote about Black writers and what Zora said about having the same freedom as white writers. But Black writers so many of them were writing about their own people in a way that nobody else did. And so I think that's partly also what Alice captured. I was glad that she spoke about her personality and not so much about her work. She talked about her as a person, which of course made her work so wonderful and easy to absorb and instructive.
That video with Alice Walker was incredible. And like Charlene, both Alice and Valerie are daughters of Georgia. So it's almost as if Valerie was all of the things that she was doing leading up to Wrapped in Rainbows was positioning her to be a biographer of Alice, and just her excitement about it. I remember watching an interview that she did with Alice Walker at Emory, watching the video of it, and just how comfortable the two of them seemed together. That relationship was such a special relationship. And I'm just going to read another little piece of an email. This is from December 28th, 2014. And she's giving me an update on what she's doing. And she says, the Alice work is going very well. I had the fall semester off from teaching, as you may recall. So I have been visiting the library at Emory and burrowing deep in the journals pretty much every day since May. It's been glorious, joyful work. Unfortunately, I have to return to the classroom January 6th. I will still try to get to the library a couple of times a week, still on my non-teaching days, but I will miss the joyful abandon of rendezvousing with Alice's voice so frequently on those long afternoons in the library. And then, she had written something. This was a few months earlier. And she had given me an update on sort of hanging out in the archives and being excited and optimistic. This was January 4th, 2013. But she also wrote just a few minutes later in a reply. She says, on another note, I just learned that Richard Long passed away. I just had drinks with him and Kathleen Cleaver 2 weeks ago at Randall's house after a day at the archive. All day in the archive and then red wine with brilliant people. I remember it being a perfect day. Life is short, my friend. Let's live it.
Oh my.
When you talk about her being a great teacher, again, I've found some references when she was trying to create the program. And I know what a legacy she has left and the students whose lives she has had an impact on. But I have these two emails, one January 31st, 2011. There's a conference in DC that the American Writers Conference or something that I thought she was going to come to. And so we were emailing back and forth because I was hoping I was going to see her. And she said, I just learned last week that I won't be attending AWP this year after all. We are meeting with some resistance to the graduate program in narrative nonfiction that I'm attempting to start at UGA. I'm in the School of Journalism, and some colleagues in English don't think this kind of program should be done at all, and certainly not in journalism. So the program has hit an approval snag, which means a financial snag as well. So no AWP for me this year. And then we talk about this sort of, the scholars versus the journalists. 5 years later, she says, come August, I am starting a new low residency MFA program in narrative nonfiction at UGA. I've been working on this for almost 5 years, but it's finally coming to fruition. And we will welcome our first cohort in August. I'm excited about it, but also a bit terrified. A lot of details to oversee, as you can imagine. And she says, I'm ambivalent about it being at UGA, which is really terrible at diversity and inclusion. But I hope my program will change that and at least help to make my time there more interesting and engaging for me and eventually for a range of diverse students who I hope to help find their voices in the world.
Yep, exactly. And it continues. I mean, the project continues.
I feel as if I know her, having listened to you all. Is there anything that you would like to share that has not been asked of you?
I just want to say that, my friendship with Valerie has been primarily a long distance friendship because we live in different places. And I remember reading a Facebook post that she did near Mother's Day some years ago, soon after her mother died. And I wrote to her and I said, Valerie, I'm so sorry to hear about this. I feel as if we're kindred spirits, but there is a lot that I don't know about you. And I think that Valerie was so warm and so open, and there was always a part of her that she kept very close. Mm-hmm. Many of us did not know about the second round of cancer, but she still remained just so available and so kind and so loving. And so I just feel, so blessed and so fortunate to have had a friendship with her and to, be able to continue to lift her up and talk about her and the work that she's done and her legacy going forward.
We hope that Valerie has left some young people who will walk in her shoes, or at least follow in her footsteps. She had tiny feet, but her footsteps were large.
The path was wide.
That's right.
Alelia Bundles, Charlene Hunter-Gault, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been so moving. Thanks for listening to Unerased Black Women Speak, made possible by support from the Craig Newmark Philanthropies, the Park Foundation, TD Charitable Foundation, and anonymous donors. Our theme song is Unerased by Carolyn Malachi. We had help from Joya Jefferson Nuri, Joshua Levi Perrin, Alyssa Davis, Alex Kavoris, Jovita Hill, Rosemary Neely, Marisol Bello, and social media coordinators Antoinette Miner and April McKellar Perry. Our coordinating producer is Stephanie Renee, and our audio producer and host is Carolyn Malachi. Gwen McKinney is our creator and executive producer. All of us at Unerased Black Women Speak invite you to tune in to our next episode. While you're there, please subscribe and visit us online at unerasedbws.com.